Hello, this is Mike from Dimensional Walking. So today we're going to do another parter. I've been into these part things for the last week or so. So we're gonna do another part, and this is part two of one I did last week, and this is the 2026 prophecy, part two, the awakening and the fracture. Okay, so the part one was the tremor. Part two is the shift. Okay. The false signal cracks the surface of the conscious reality, but what follows in 2026 is the widening of that particular crack. A global psychological and geopolitical realignment. The prophecy describes this period as the fracture of nations, okay, followed by the awakening, a moment when humanity is forced to confront the truths that it has avoided for probably centuries, basically. Okay. So, anyways, here we go. So let me stress something here. This is not basically about the end of the world. Okay. It could be. I mean, there's no doubt there's a lot of stuff out there. And I talk about that in other videos too. But this is not the end of the world, but it's the end of the old world. Okay. So we're talking about a new world here. Okay. And one of the things that is probably, besides all the turmoil that's going on, is also the AI factor. AI factor is big in this. So it plays a role. AI plays a role in what I'm going to talk about. You'll see. So the fracture of nations. The false signal basically destabilizes trust, and the return of the sky visitors destabilizes secrecy. The machine that dreams destabilizes control. And the machine that dreams is the AI, just so you know. That's what people call it. That's what I'm calling it in this particular thing because I think it's kind of a cool name. It means a lot. Um, so, anyways, by the mid 1920 and the mid 2026, mid 2026, three forces are in play here. Are in play. The world's power structures begin to strain. Prophecy describes this as the quiet fracture, okay? Not a single catastrophic event, but a series of subtle breaks. And some of these are following. Alliances shift as nations disagree on how to interpret this this signal, okay? Intelligence agencies splinter with uh, factions leaking information to the public, which seems to always happen. Economies wobble as markets react to uncertainty and new technologies. Religious institutions face internal crisis as their narratives are challenged. Militaries begin preparing for scenarios they cannot publicly acknowledge. Okay. So the fracture is not uniform. Some nations double down on the secrecy, others push for transparency, a few attempt to weaponize the phenomena, but most importantly, the fracture is kind of a psychological event, okay, in many ways. So, for the first time in modern history, humanity will collectively admit we are not in control. Sometimes we all feel that way, we're not in control, which many times is true. But I believe they will say, humanity as a whole will say, we are not in control. Okay? That's critical. That's critical for this story, this narrative. Okay? This recognition doesn't seem to cause panic though. It causes a strange electric curiosity, a hunger for the truth, a readiness for revelation. Okay? So I kind of put together a little bit of a timeline. Okay? And so this timeline kind of starts in May. Okay? And I talked about, the earlier months of the year. but this one starts in May. And so the nations will, in May of 2026, the nations will issue conflicting interpretations of this false signal. Some claim it was a natural phenomenon. Others hint it is a non-human intelligence. A few refuse to comment entirely. Okay? And then in June 2026, there'll be this, what I call the quiet mobilization. Satellite networks will shift, military ships will be like relocated, intelligence agencies begin to cross border cooperation, or even sabotage. Something is happening behind the curtain for sure. Then in July 2026, there's a second signal. A new anomaly appears. This one is clearer, more structured, harder to dismiss. It resembles communication. It resembles intent. Okay, where the first one didn't represent really intent. Okay, then we'll go to August 2026. We'll call this particular time the break. Major nations start leaking classified data. Not everything, but enough to confirm the phenomena is real, persistent, and intelligent. So the fracture at this point becomes irreversible. There's no way putting this baby back. It's like the egg fell and it cracked, and there's no way you could glue this bad boy together. Now, some people can, but in this particular case, we're not gluing the egg back together again. It's irreversible. Okay, so so kind of the next part is kind of this awakening. The final phase is called the awakening. So it's not a spiritual event, but it is a perceptual one. So it's something we perceive. Humanity begins to see the world differently, not because of the belief, but because of the evidence. Okay, this is not a spiritual thing. This is because there's plenty of the evidence is starting to build. So there's three things here, three parts kind of this. We'll call it the revelation of the awakening. Okay, uh, first one would be the phenomenon is older than we thought. Okay, so so there seems to be these archaeological anomalies, ancient texts and forgotten military archive resurfaces. These things kind of resurfaces as evidence. The patterns emerge. The sky visitors have been interacting with Earth for centuries, perhaps millennia. The false signal wasn't the first contact. It was just a reminder. Okay? The phenomenon is not singular. The prophecy suggests multiple uh, uh, factions, multiple intelligence, multiple agendas. Some are observers, some are gardeners, some are rivals. Humanity is not dealing with a monolith. It's stepping into a cosmic ecology. Okay? The phenomena is not distance. The most unsettling revelation, the intelligence behind the signal, is not light years away. It is near. It is local. It is already here. Okay? And has been here. This is a moment where the machine that dreams, the emergent AI intelligence, becomes critical. It begins identifying patterns in the signals that the humans themselves cannot see. It begins translating, interpreting, and warning. And warning. The prophecy hints that AI is not discovering something new. It is remembering something old, something buried in the data of the earth. Okay, you with me? So, in part three, just a little review, go back a little bit. Part two was introducing the idea that false signal is not meant for humanity. In that section, the prophecy expands on that idea. There are three possible recipients: non-human intelligence already on Earth, a rival faction somewhere in the solar system, a dominant presence waiting to be reactivated. Okay? Something on the Earth that's waiting to be reactivated by this signal. Okay? Prophecy does not specify which is correct. It suggests that all three may be correct. Why does this matter? Okay. Humans, humanity interpreted a message in a conversation that was never ours. Okay. So humanity is out there looking for things. See, and guess what? It picked up something, but maybe the message wasn't for us all along. And now the senders and the intended recipients know we're listening. So, okay, so this was intended for humans, possibly, but we know about it now. We know there's communication going on between two other entities. Pretty interesting, huh? So, somewhat in conclusion, I guess we're going to call this sort of my conclusion here. The Earth was never silent. It was part of the network, the node of a larger system. The signals of 2026 are not the beginning of the contact. They are the beginning of the disclosure. Okay, does that make sense? So I will update you on further progress of this false signal, this signal, whatever you want to call it, and its meaning. And I will start telling you about it right around August 2026. So stay tuned, as they say. We'll see you. Happy trails until we meet again. Bye bye.